Yes, students, now we are going to study the remaining ideals or the principles of the Indian Constitution which are highlighted in the Constitution. So in the last period we have studied the first feature of federalism. So today we are going to see the remaining ideals. First we will have a look at the remaining principles that we are going to study today. The parliamentary form of government, separation of powers, fundamental rights, fundamental duties, directive principles of state policy, and secularism. Students, if you remember yesterday, it was told to you that what is the importance of these ideals. See, the constitution of the country, it starts with the preamble, and preamble states these ideals. And what is the importance of these ideals? These ideals or principles, they act as guideline to the policy makers. So first feature was federalism. What do you remember about federalism? India is a land of diversity which has two levels of government. It is about sharing of power between the levels of government. So which are the two levels? The central government and the state government. And these governments, they draw power from where? From the constitution. The constitution lays down the powers, and there are three lists: the union list, state list, and concurrent list. They deal with the powers and functions of the different levels. The state governments, they enjoy independence in matters of the state, in matters related to the states. In matters of national importance, they have to they obey the order of the central government. And in matters which are of concern for both the government, the central government and the state government, in such matters, these subjects or these issues or subjects which are of concern for both, they are included in the concurrent list. So this is the first principle of federalism, in which the powers are divided between the central government and state government. And this principle, it can be further extended to one more level of government, that is the local government, which includes the panchayats and the municipalities. Okay, so students, this is the first principle. Now we will study the second principle. This is called as the parliamentary form of government. When we call as the parliamentary form of government, so in a parliamentary structure, what happens? The people who are chosen by the citizens of the country, they run the country. The people who are chosen by the citizens, they run the country. So these people who are chosen by the citizens of the country, who run the country, they are the elected representatives. They are chosen through universal adult franchise. So these are the elected representatives of the citizens, on behalf of whom they make the laws. So what is the function of these elected representatives? As it is given here, that they make the laws of the country. So the constitution, it guarantees that universal adult franchise. What is the meaning of universal adult franchise? It means that every citizen who is of 18 years of age or above, he has the right to vote. So the constitution makers, they felt that all the citizens of the country, they would be able to directly participate in the functioning of the government. Do you remember? We have seen last time that the constitution makers, they drafted a constitution which emphasized the role of the people in the formation of the government. So that was about like what important role the people play. Here we are seeing that the constitution makers, they felt that people would be directly able to participate in the function of the government in this manner. This manner means which? Through the parliamentary structure of government. Okay, now we are going to study the third principle which is highlighted in the constitution, which is about separation of powers. The constitution, it defines powers between the three organs of the government. Which are the three organs of the government? They are legislature, the executive, and the judiciary. So this is again about sharing of power between the organs which are placed at the same level but which exercise different functions. Which are these three organs? These three organs are legislature. What do you mean of legislature? Legislature means it is the body that makes the laws. Legislate means to make laws. So the function of the legislature, it includes the elected representatives. So what is their function? They make the laws. So these laws which are made by the legislature, these laws are implemented by the executive. You are going to study later in higher classes that there are two types of executive. One is permanent executive and one is political executive. Permanent executive means they are the elected representatives, and they take day-to-day decisions. They are called as the political executives, and permanent executives. These are the two types of executives. And I was telling you the difference between the political executive and the permanent executive. Permanent executive, they are the civil servants, and they work under the political executives. Political executives are they are chosen by the people, they are elected representatives, and they become the ministers. They are the ministers. So what is the work of these ministers? And the bureaucrats, the civil servants, they implement the laws. They execute therefore the policy of the government, therefore they are called as executive. The third organ is the judiciary. What is the role of judiciary? It protects the interest of the people, and it prevents the breach of rules, the violation of rules, which are the rules which are proclaimed by the constitution, which are proclaimed in the constitution, and the breach can happen by whom? By the organs of the government. So if any organ of the government, if any politician or public or if any government official, if he misuses his authority, so if such kind of breach happens, so it is the judiciary that prevents the breach of such rules. It does not allow the breach of such rules. So in this way, the three organs of the government, that is the legislature, the executive and judiciary, they act as a system of check on the others, and this results in a balance of power between the three organs of the government. So therefore it is called as a system of checks and balances. Next principle is about the fundamental rights. So what is the meaning of fundamental rights? See, these are the conditions which are essential, considered essential for the well-being of the people. The Constitution guarantees the Indian citizens the fundamental rights. These rights are essential for our well-being, as well as they promote the ideals of liberty, equality and justice. So there are 6 fundamental rights. Again, understand why they are called as fundamental, because they are essential for our well-being. They are the base for achieving the well-being of our personality, of our own, of ourselves. Now, what are these fundamental rights? These are the fundamental rights are the right to equality. Second, the right to freedom. Third, the right to freedom of religion. Fourth, right against exploitation. Exploitation means somebody, if he is misusing, he is exploiting others. For example, the Constitution, it prohibits child labor. So this comes against comes under the right against exploitation. Cultural and educational rights. People, they have freedom to preserve their culture. They can run educational institutions. Constitutional remedies means what? Right to constitutional remedies is that if the fundamental rights are violated, if there are certain rules regarding the what can happen if the interests of the people they are violated. So what can happen is that the person he can move the court. So the right to constitutional remedies, it allows the citizens whose rights are violated to move the court. The constitution is often referred to as the fundamental rights, they are often referred to as the conscience of the constitution. um, Conscience is the moral sense of right or wrong, and it is considered that is it acts as a guide. So similarly the fundamental rights are also considered as having a sense of what is right or wrong, having an awareness about what is right or wrong. The next principle is fundamental duties. As the fundamental rights, what do they do? They are helping the citizens in their betterment, or they benefit the citizens. So it is the responsibility of the citizens also that what they should do something for the state. So the fundamental rights they were included in the constitution, though they are not enforceable by law, but they were included in the constitution in the year 1976. And what are those fundamental duties? The fundamental duties, number one, it is that we should respect our national flag and national anthem. The first one. Second, we should regard and preserve what is our natural and cultural heritage. Heritage means what? What we have, what have come down to us from the past, maybe from our ancestors, from our forefathers. So preserving that, it can be natural heritage also, those things which are present in the nature, those we were preserved, and those which have come down to us, for example the resources, for example the river, the trees, etc. So preserving the natural heritage and the cultural heritage also. Culture is the manifestation of human genius. So the arts, for example, literature, for language, for example. So that culture also is expected to be preserved. Next is that we should promote peace and harmony. We should encourage that in our country there should be peace and there should be harmony. Harmony means working in the spirit, matching in working in such a way that we are not creating problems for others. So that is the atmosphere of harmony, that we let others to work and the others also let us work. We work in such a way of cooperation with one another, not creating problem for others. So such kind of atmosphere should be promoted, atmosphere of peace and harmony. Then we also protect our principles of sovereignty, honesty and unity. We should uphold these principles of sovereignty. Sovereignty means the having supreme power. So this principle, it should be upheld by us. Similarly of unity and honesty. And we should develop a scientific temperament. Temperament is like our mindset. We should have a scientific mindset. What do you mean of scientific mindset? Scientific mindset means trying to understand why things happen. Okay, so we should develop such kind of scientific temperament, and we should have a spirit of inquiry. Now the last principle, the last ideal is about secularism. Secular state, it does not support any particular religion and treats all alike, and the people, they are free to propagate any religion of their choice. The term secularism, it was included in the constitution by making an amendment to the constitution in the year 1976, and you are going to study about this concept in detail in the next chapter, which is titled as secularism in India. Now with this we have finished all the principles or ideals which are highlighted in the constitution. And what do? they act as guideline to the policy makers. Thus, the history of a country has profound influence on its constitution. Framers wanted to achieve advancement. The framers of the constitution of our country, they wanted to achieve rapid growth and advancement, but at the same time they wanted to preserve the diverse characteristics. We have seen that what are the diverse characteristics, like people in India, they are so much diverse communities, as they speak different languages, they practice different distinct customs and traditions, people pursue different religions. So the constitution makers wanted that people should be able to preserve their diverse characteristics and wanted to achieve development. So achieving development at the same time preserving the diverse characteristics of the people, how it was done? It was done by making various provisions in the constitution. So we have seen that what an important role the constitution of a country it plays on the government, on the citizens' life. So with these students, we come to the end of the chapter. We will take a rapid revision of whatever we have studied in this chapter. This chapter we began with the definition of what is constitution. Yes, what is constitution? It is a written document which includes the rules and regulations by which a country is governed. After this, we have seen that why constitution is described as the soul of democracy. There we have seen the different reasons, like why it is called as the core or essential part, which is essential for the existence of the democracy. How constitution acts as a soul of democracy. There, for example, we have seen that how it promotes, it helps in primarily helps in promoting the political stability of the country. It helps in maintaining, it helps in binding the society by treating all the people, all the communities equally. It helps in determining the structure of the government, the powers and functions of the government, and the rights and duties of the people of the country. So therefore it is called as the soul of democracy. After this, we have seen that why every country should have a constitution. There, do you remember those 4 reasons why a country should have a constitution? The first one is that the constitution it describes, it defines the nature of the society by laying down the principles and the people of the society they believe in, the ideals which they believe in and they agree to abide by. The second reason is that the constitution it defines the it describes the nature of the political system. There we have seen that in Nepal there was monarchy, but where there is democracy, the constitution plays a very important role. And how the constitution plays a very crucial role, that it determines, the constitution it plays an important role. How does the constitution play an important role in a democracy? It acts as a guideline for the selection, for the selecting the representatives. It lays down the guideline for the selection of the representatives. It also lays down the guideline for the separation of powers. It puts down the system of the checks and balances. So in this way the constitution and one more, that about the fundamental rights, that they protect us, the people, from the interest of the people from against the misuse of authority. So therefore the constitution, this was the reason that why a country should have constitution, and how it was related to how the constitution is it is describing the nature of the political system. Means what kind of political system has in a country has, and what role in that political system the constitution, what crucial role the constitution of the country it plays. Thereafter we have seen the third reason why country should have constitution is that it promotes it protects the interest of the minorities against the influential sections of the society, against the domination of the influential section of the society. And the last reason was that how it safeguards us, how it safeguards the country from the choices that might be undesirable, that might be harmful to the ideas, the rules, the ideas the people of the country believe in. Next, in part 2, we have seen how the Constituent Assembly was convened, how the elected representatives, the Constituent Assembly, it consists of the elected representatives, the assembly of elected representatives that did the work of drafting the constitution, how these 300 members from 1946 to 1949, how they met regularly with the vision of drafting a constitution, a vision that making free India a democratic country, how they worked in a systematic manner. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, who is called as the father of the Indian Constitution, he was the chairman of the drafting committee. He prepared the draft for the first of all the assembly, the Constitutional Assembly. They decided the ideas, the basic principles. They were decided and agreed upon, and then the draft of the constitution prepared by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, by the committee chaired by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, that draft was discussed in the Constitutional Assembly, and it was discussed thoroughly and clause by clause, and there were many amendments that were considered, and this work continued for 114 days, which was covered over a period of 3 years, from 1946 to 1949. And in 1949, the Constituent Assembly, it approved the constitution, and the constitution, it came into force, it came into effect on 26th of January 1950. The Constitution of India, it is perhaps the longest and most exhaustive constitution in the world. After that, we have seen the challenges they were faced by the framers of the constitution, the 3 challenges that were faced by the framers of the constitution. What were those 3 challenges? First was regarding that India is a country made up of diverse communities. They speak different languages, they pursue different religions, and they practice different customs and traditions. The second challenge was regarding the political unrest in the country. Like the partition of the country was inevitable, and secondly, the princely states, they were uncertain about the future. The last challenge was regarding the socio-economic factors. It was regarding the poverty of the people because of the socio-economic factors. So eliminating the poverty in the country, this was another challenge faced by the, how to eliminate the poverty, how to reduce the poverty. This was the third challenge faced by the constitution makers. So after that, in the next part, that is 2C, we have studied the different features of the Indian Constitution: federalism, parliamentary form of government, separation of powers, fundamental rights, fundamental duties, directive principles of state policy, and secularism. So in this way, students, we have covered the whole chapter, and I hope you must have understood it. And if you have any difficulty, you should not hesitate to ask me. You can send me a message, or you can call me, and go through the video again. If you have any difficulty, study it 2-3 times, and still if you face some difficulty, you can approach me. So with this, we come to the end of the chapter. And regarding question answers, you are already writing the question answers, and today we will finish with the question answers also. The remaining extra questions I am going to give today, and whatever questions are there other than this, what you are writing in your fair notebook, those question answers, they will be provided to you as printed notes. Thank you.